I stood frozen in our doorway, watching my mother-in-law, Eleanor, drag suitcase after suitcase into our living room. My husband, Marcus, appeared beside her, avoiding my eyes completely. "She's living here now," he announced casually, as if discussing weekend plans. Eleanor smiled, that cold, calculated smile I knew too well. "Surprise, Serafina, dear. I hope you don't mind sharing your precious space." The words hit like ice water. No discussion, no warning. Just a unilateral decision that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my marriage and my place in this family. But before I dive into how this nightmare unfolded, I need to know, where are you watching from today? If you've ever dealt with impossible in-laws or felt betrayed by family, hit that like button, because this story is going to take you on a wild ride. Make sure to subscribe, because trust me, you'll want to see how this family drama reaches its shocking conclusion. Now let me tell you exactly how my perfect life became a battlefield. The first week of Eleanor's visit revealed the depth of planning behind this ambush. While organizing our home office to accommodate her takeover, I discovered a folder hidden in Marcus's desk drawer. My hands trembled as I read through legal documents that made my blood run cold. Property transfer agreements, bank account modifications, insurance policy beneficiary changes, all dated 3 months ago, all removing my name and adding Eleanor's. Marcus had been systematically stripping me of any legal claim to our life together. Our house, purchased with my inheritance from my grandmother, was being quietly transferred into a trust controlled by Eleanor. The joint savings account we had built over 5 years of marriage now listed her as primary beneficiary. Even my car, which I had paid for entirely with my salary as a pediatric nurse, was somehow entangled in these machinations. The embezzlement went deeper than simple paperwork. I discovered that Marcus had been accessing my personal accounts using banking information I had shared during our early marriage. Small amounts at first, then larger sums funneled into investments I knew nothing about. Properties purchased in his mother's name. Stock portfolios built with my money but registered to Eleanor's corporations. The financial manipulation was surgical in its precision. Every document bore my forged signature perfected over months of practice. Bank statements had been intercepted and replaced with falsified versions showing normal balances. The accounting software on our shared computer had been altered to hide the true extent of the theft. My trusted partner had become a sophisticated criminal and his mother the mastermind pulling every string. But the cruelest revelation was the favoritism that had always existed, now weaponized against me. Text messages between Marcus and Eleanor revealed years of conspiracy. "Serafina is too trusting," Eleanor had written. "Perfect for our long-term plans." Their discussions detailed how they had cultivated my dependence on Marcus, encouraging me to reduce my work hours to rely on his financial guidance to trust completely in our shared future. The contempt in their private conversations burned through me like acid. Eleanor referred to me as the temporary wife and useful breeding stock in messages discussing their timeline for children. Marcus had laughed at my nursing career, calling it cute hobby work that would end once I produced grandchildren for Eleanor. They had discussed my personality traits like livestock characteristics, noting my loyalty and work ethic as beneficial qualities to exploit. The disregard for my humanity was complete. I found recordings on Marcus's phone of our intimate conversations shared with Eleanor for analysis and strategic planning. My fears, my dreams, my vulnerabilities had all been cataloged and weaponized. They knew about my difficult childhood, my fear of abandonment, my desperate desire for family acceptance. Every emotional manipulation had been carefully calculated to keep me compliant and grateful. The scope of their planning was breathtaking. medical records showing Eleanor had convinced Marcus to have me undergo unnecessary fertility treatments, claiming family history of complications. Insurance policies taken out on my life with Eleanor as beneficiary. Legal documents prepared for guardianship claims should anything happen to me. They had built a comprehensive system designed to extract every possible value from my existence while maintaining plausible deniability. The evidence painted a picture of systematic fraud spanning our entire relationship. Our wedding gifts had been liquidated and invested in Eleanor's portfolio. The business loan I had co-signed for Marcus's consulting company had been funneled directly into real estate purchases under Eleanor's name. Even my employee benefits, including my retirement contributions, had been redirected through legal loopholes I never knew existed. As I photographed each document with shaking hands, the full magnitude of their betrayal crystallized. This was not impulsive greed or sudden desperation. This was a multi-year campaign of financial abuse, identity theft, and emotional manipulation designed to leave me with nothing while enriching Eleanor's empire. They had turned my love into a weapon against my own future. The realization that my marriage was an elaborate long-term con hit harder than any physical blow. Every anniversary dinner, every birthday celebration, every moment of apparent intimacy had been performance art designed to maintain access to my resources. Marcus had never loved me. Eleanor had never accepted me. I was simply a useful mark who had walked willingly into their carefully constructed trap. Armed with devastating evidence, I knew confrontation required perfect timing and unshakable proof. Eleanor's greatest weakness was her need for social status and community respect. As the self-proclaimed matriarch of our neighborhood association, she had spent years building relationships with influential families, positioning herself as the epitome of moral authority. Her Tuesday evening bridge club included the mayor's wife, two prominent attorneys' spouses, and the head of our city's largest charity foundation. I spent 2 weeks preparing my counterattack with methodical precision. Every document was copied, organized, and stored in multiple secure locations. I created detailed timelines showing the progression of their financial crimes, complete with bank statements, forged signatures, and transaction records. The evidence was overwhelming, but presentation would determine its impact on our community of witnesses. The Bridge Club met at Eleanor's insistence in our living room every Tuesday, a power move designed to showcase her dominance over our household. She loved playing hostess with my china, serving refreshments I was expected to prepare, accepting compliments on decorating choices I had made years before her arrival. These evenings had become weekly humiliation rituals where Eleanor basked in praise while I remained invisible, relegated to kitchen cleanup and silent service. But this Tuesday would be different. As Eleanor arranged flowers and prepared her usual performance, I quietly set up my laptop with a presentation titled Financial Literacy for Modern Families. I had invited 2 additional guests under the pretense of expanding the group Detective Maria Rodriguez, whom I had met during a community safety seminar, and certified public accountant Jennifer Walsh, whose daughter I had treated in our pediatric emergency room. When the ladies arrived for their evening of cards and gossip, Eleanor was radiant with self-satisfaction. She introduced me with her usual patronizing tone. My daughter-in-law, Serafina, helps with the household maintenance. She's learning so much about running a proper home. The other women smiled politely, accustomed to Eleanor's casual dismissal of my professional achievements and personal worth. As they settled into their usual card game rhythm, I approached with apparent nervousness, clutching my laptop. Eleanor, I hope you don't mind, but I prepared a little presentation about family financial planning. I thought these accomplished women might appreciate learning about investment strategies and legal protections. Eleanor's eyes narrowed slightly, but her public persona demanded gracious acceptance of my seemingly innocent educational effort. The first slides showed general information about retirement planning and joint asset management, boring enough to maintain the illusion of amateur enthusiasm. But as I clicked through seemingly innocent charts about property ownership and beneficiary designations, the specific details began emerging. Bank account numbers that Detective Rodriguez recognized from fraud investigations. Property transfer patterns that Jennifer Walsh immediately identified as suspicious. Insurance policy manipulations that triggered knowing glances between the mayor's wife and charity foundation head. When I reached the slide showing forged signature comparisons, Eleanor's face began changing colors. My authentic signatures, carefully preserved from old documents, displayed alongside the obviously practiced forgeries on recent legal paperwork. The progression showed months of signature refinement, with early attempts clearly distinguishable from later, more sophisticated fakes. Jennifer Walsh audibly gasped, recognizing the professional-level document fraud typically associated with organized crime families. The room's atmosphere shifted dramatically as I revealed the property transfer timeline. Our family home, purchased with my inheritance, showed a complex web of legal maneuvers designed to remove my ownership claims while maintaining my liability for mortgage payments. Eleanor's name appeared strategically throughout the documentation, inserted through amendments and codicils that bore forged signatures and falsified witness statements. Detective Rodriguez leaned forward as I displayed the banking records showing systematic embezzlement. Small initial withdrawals had escalated into major asset transfers, all accomplished through identity theft and document manipulation. The timeline coincided perfectly with Eleanor's increased involvement in our financial planning, suggesting coordination and premeditation that elevated the crimes to felony levels requiring federal investigation. The mayor's wife stood abruptly when I showed the insurance policies taken out on my life, with Eleanor listed as primary beneficiary. The amounts were substantial enough to provide clear motive for more serious crimes, transforming what appeared to be financial manipulation into potential conspiracy for personal harm. The charity foundation head immediately recognized the legal implications, having dealt with similar fraud cases in her professional oversight role. Eleanor's attempts at damage control only deepened her culpability. Her stammered explanations about family financial planning and protective legal measures contradicted the evidence of systematic deception and criminal fraud. Marcus's absence became conspicuous as the women demanded explanations for his role in the elaborate scheme. Eleanor's claims of ignorance rang hollow against bank records showing her direct participation in multiple fraudulent transactions. The Bridge Club's transformation from social gathering to impromptu investigation tribunal was swift and merciless. These women had built their reputations on community involvement and moral authority. Eleanor's betrayal of their trust, combined with the criminal evidence now laid bare, triggered immediate social and legal consequences. Detective Rodriguez formally requested all documentation for criminal investigation, while Jennifer Walsh offered professional testimony regarding the sophisticated nature of the financial crimes. As Eleanor watched her carefully constructed social empire crumble in real time, the true cost of her greed became apparent. The Bridge Club members were not merely social contacts, but influential community leaders with direct connections to legal, political, and financial institutions throughout our city. Their unanimous condemnation carried weight far beyond neighborhood gossip, promising professional and legal consequences that would extend throughout Eleanor's network of business and social relationships. The aftermath of Bridge Club revelations sent shockwaves through our community, but Eleanor was far from finished. Within days, she launched a vicious counterattack designed to discredit my evidence and destroy my reputation. Her strategy was sophisticated and brutal. paint me as a mentally unstable woman experiencing a psychological breakdown, jealous of her son's successful mother and unable to cope with normal family dynamics. Eleanor's first move was recruiting Dr. Harrison Mitchell, a psychiatrist who owed his practice's prime office location to property deals involving Eleanor's real estate connections. Suddenly, I began receiving concerned phone calls from neighbors reporting that Eleanor was sharing confidential family concerns about my mental health. According to her carefully crafted narrative, my presentation at Bridge Club was a cry for help from a woman suffering delusions of persecution and financial paranoia. The psychological warfare escalated when Marcus returned from his suspiciously timed business trip. Instead of addressing the criminal evidence I had discovered, he immediately began implementing Eleanor's prepared script. He scheduled an appointment with Dr. Mitchell without my knowledge, telling our neighbors that he was seeking professional guidance for dealing with my recent emotional instability and concerning behavioral changes. But Eleanor underestimated the intelligence and integrity of the women who had witnessed her exposure. Detective Maria Rodriguez had already begun preliminary criminal investigation, and her professional instincts recognized classic perpetrator behavior in Eleanor's immediate victim-blaming response. Instead of being swayed by Eleanor's manipulation attempts, Detective Rodriguez became my first and most crucial ally in the growing battle. Jennifer Walsh, the certified public accountant, provided the second pillar of my defense coalition. Her forensic analysis of the financial documents revealed layers of sophisticated fraud that extended far beyond my personal case. Eleanor's schemes involved multiple properties, shell corporations, and investment vehicles that suggested systematic criminal activity spanning decades. Jennifer's professional reputation and expert testimony would prove invaluable in any legal proceedings. The mayor's wife, Patricia Hawthorne, brought political influence and social connections that Eleanor could not counter. Patricia's husband had built his career on anti-corruption platforms, and Eleanor's brazen criminal activity represented exactly the type of fraud his administration had promised to eliminate. Patricia's endorsement of my credibility carried weight throughout our city's power structure, protecting me from Eleanor's attempts at character assassination. The Charity Foundation head, Dr. Rebecca Chin, added institutional credibility and nonprofit sector influence to our growing alliance. Her organization's mission focused on protecting vulnerable families from financial exploitation, making Eleanor's crimes a perfect case study for their advocacy work. Dr. Chin's involvement ensured that Eleanor's actions would receive attention from state-level regulatory agencies and victim advocacy groups. As our coalition strengthened, we discovered Eleanor's pattern of similar crimes targeting other family members and community victims. Jennifer Walsh's forensic investigation revealed that Marcus's two previous relationships had ended under suspicious financial circumstances. Both women had suffered significant financial losses during breakups, with property and assets mysteriously transferring to Eleanor's control through complex legal maneuvers. Detective Rodriguez's investigation uncovered additional victims throughout our community. Eleanor had used her real estate connections and social status to identify vulnerable families, particularly elderly widows and divorced women rebuilding their lives. Her methods were consistent: establish trust through community involvement, gain access to financial information through helpful advice, then execute systematic theft through legal manipulation and document fraud. The scope of Eleanor's criminal enterprise was staggering. Over 15 years, she had accumulated millions of dollars through fraudulent schemes targeting dozens of victims. Her real estate portfolio, investment accounts, and business holdings were built on systematic theft from people who had trusted her guidance and friendship. The evidence suggested organized criminal activity that would require federal investigation and prosecution. Our alliance expanded as more victims emerged from Eleanor's past. Former neighbors, previous community members, and even distant relatives began sharing stories of mysterious financial losses and legal complications following their interactions with Eleanor. Each testimony added weight to our case and demonstrated the predatory nature of her long-term criminal behavior. The emotional turning point came when Detective Rodriguez arranged a meeting with Eleanor's previous daughter-in-law, Amanda, who had been Marcus's first wife. Amanda's story revealed the template for Eleanor's operations: encourage dependence gain, financial access. Execute systematic theft, then destroy the victim's credibility during the inevitable discovery phase. Amanda had lost her home, her savings, and custody of her children through Eleanor's manipulations. Amanda became our most powerful ally because she had survived Eleanor's complete playbook. Her experience provided crucial insights into Eleanor's psychological manipulation techniques and legal strategies. More importantly, Amanda had spent years documenting Eleanor's crimes and building her own evidence collection, waiting for an opportunity to seek justice. Our alliance gave her the coalition strength necessary to pursue criminal charges. The alliance-building phase revealed Eleanor's greatest vulnerability: her compulsive need to repeat successful patterns. Her arrogance had prevented her from adapting her methods or limiting her targets, creating a trail of victims and evidence that spanned multiple jurisdictions and involved various federal crimes. Our growing coalition represented not just my personal justice, but accountability for decades of systematic criminal activity. As word of our investigation spread through professional and social networks, additional allies emerged from unexpected places. Attorneys who had noticed suspicious legal filings, bankers who had questioned irregular transactions, and community leaders who had sensed something wrong with Eleanor's rapid wealth accumulation all stepped forward with crucial information and professional support. The transformation from isolated victim to coalition leader was empowering but dangerous. Eleanor's increasingly desperate counterattacks suggested she understood the existential threat our alliance represented to her criminal empire. Her willingness to escalate psychological warfare and legal intimidation indicated that the coming confrontation would test every alliance we had built and require courage from every member of our growing coalition. Just as our alliance seemed unbreakable, the most devastating blow came from within our own ranks. Dr. Rebecca Chin, whom I had trusted completely, revealed her true loyalties during what I thought was a strategy meeting at her foundation office. As I laid out our final evidence compilation, she was secretly recording everything on behalf of Eleanor's legal team. The betrayal was surgical in its precision. Dr. Chin had been feeding Eleanor detailed information about our investigation timeline, witness testimonies, and evidence collection methods for weeks. Every strategy we had discussed, every weakness we had identified in Eleanor's defenses, every personal detail I had shared about my emotional state had been transmitted directly to our opposition. The foundation office I had considered a safe haven was actually Eleanor's intelligence operation headquarters. The revelation came through Detective Rodriguez's discovery of financial connections between Dr. Chin's foundation and Eleanor's shell corporations. Eleanor had been the foundation's largest anonymous donor for over 5 years, contributing hundreds of thousands of dollars through complex charitable giving structures that masked her identity. Dr. Chin's entire career advancement had been funded by Eleanor's criminal proceeds, creating a debt of loyalty that superseded any professional ethics or personal integrity. The scope of Dr. Chin's treachery extended beyond simple information sharing. She had actively sabotaged our efforts by providing Eleanor's lawyers with early access to our evidence, allowing them to prepare counter-narratives and legal challenges before we could file formal charges. Witness testimonies had been compromised through Dr. Chin's victim counseling sessions that were actually interrogation opportunities designed to identify weaknesses in their accounts. More devastating was Dr. Chin's psychological manipulation of my emotional state. Her counseling sessions, which I had valued as therapeutic support during this traumatic period, were actually calculated attempts to undermine my confidence and decision-making abilities. She had been documenting my stress responses, sleep patterns, and anxiety levels to build Eleanor's case for my mental instability. Every moment of vulnerability I had shared was being weaponized against my credibility. The immediate consequences of Dr. Chin's betrayal were catastrophic. Eleanor's legal team filed preemptive motions challenging the validity of our evidence, claiming it had been obtained through improper psychological manipulation of a mentally unstable individual. They presented Dr. Chin's counseling notes as proof of my delusional thinking and paranoid ideation, transforming my legitimate trauma response into evidence of psychological unfitness. Marcus emerged from the shadows with a coordinated attack that revealed months of preparation. He filed for emergency psychiatric evaluation, supported by Dr. Chin's professional recommendation and Dr. Mitchell's predetermined diagnosis. The legal motion requested temporary guardianship over my affairs due to my alleged inability to make rational decisions about my own well-being. Eleanor would serve as temporary guardian, giving her legal control over my assets and medical decisions. The betrayal created fractures within our remaining alliance members. Patricia Hawthorne faced political pressure from Eleanor's influential connections, including major campaign donors who had business relationships with Eleanor's real estate empire. The mayor's office began distancing itself from our investigation, citing concerns about due process and proper legal procedures that Eleanor's lawyers had skillfully raised. Jennifer Walsh found her professional reputation under attack through carefully orchestrated complaints to state accounting boards. Eleanor's legal team had filed grievances alleging that Jennifer had violated client confidentiality rules and professional ethics standards by participating in our investigation. The complaints were baseless but required extensive legal defense that drained Jennifer's time and resources. Amanda, my most crucial ally due to her firsthand experience with Eleanor's methods, faced renewed legal harassment through custody challenges and financial audits. Eleanor's lawyers had discovered technical violations in Amanda's divorce settlement and were threatening to reopen custody proceedings unless she withdrew her testimony from our case. The pressure on Amanda was immense as her children's well-being was being used as leverage against her cooperation. The psychological impact of Dr. Chin's betrayal was overwhelming. The foundation office where I had felt safe and supported now represented violation and manipulation. Every conversation we had shared, every emotional breakthrough I had experienced, every moment of trust and vulnerability had been theater designed to serve Eleanor's interests. The betrayal felt more personal and devastating than even Marcus's original crimes. Detective Rodriguez remained steadfast but was facing departmental pressure to slow the investigation pending resolution of the mental competency questions. Eleanor's lawyers had filed formal complaints alleging that Rodriguez had manipulated a mentally ill civilian into making false accusations against respected community members. The complaints triggered internal affairs review that temporarily suspended Rodriguez's active involvement in our case. Eleanor's counterattack was comprehensive and brutal. She had turned my own therapeutic support system against me, weaponized my mental health treatment, and isolated me from nearly every ally I had cultivated. The evidence we had gathered remained valid, but my credibility as the primary witness was under systematic attack from multiple professional and legal angles. The temporary defeat felt complete when the emergency psychiatric evaluation order was approved. Dr. Mitchell's predetermined assessment would determine my mental competency with Eleanor positioned to assume guardianship if I was declared unfit. The legal trap was elegant and nearly inescapable. Resist evaluation and appear unstable, or submit to assessment by Eleanor's chosen psychiatrist and face predetermined diagnosis of incompetency. As I sat in my car outside the courthouse holding the legal papers that could end my freedom and validate Eleanor's criminal enterprise, the depth of her strategic planning became clear. Every move we had made had been anticipated and countered. Every alliance we had built had been infiltrated or compromised. Every piece of evidence we had gathered was being challenged through legal technicalities and procedural objections. The betrayal had achieved its intended psychological effect: complete isolation and helplessness in the face of overwhelming opposition. Eleanor's message was clear. Resistance was futile, and submission was my only option for avoiding complete destruction. But the darkest moments often precede the most unexpected reversals, and Eleanor's overconfidence was about to create the opening we needed for ultimate victory. When hope seemed completely lost, salvation came from the most unexpected source. Dr. Harrison Mitchell, the psychiatrist Eleanor had recruited to declare me mentally incompetent, contacted me secretly with information that would change everything. His conscience had been eating away at him since Eleanor's initial approach, and Dr. Chin's betrayal had finally pushed him to action. Dr. Mitchell revealed that Eleanor had approached him months before her move into our house, offering substantial financial incentives for predetermined psychiatric diagnoses. She had provided detailed psychological profiles of her targets, including me, and requested specific diagnostic language that would support legal guardianship proceedings. The conversation had been recorded on Dr. Mitchell's phone as insurance against Eleanor's future threats. The recording was devastating evidence of criminal conspiracy and medical fraud. Eleanor's voice was crystal clear as she outlined her strategy for gaining control over my assets through psychiatric manipulation. She discussed previous successful applications of this technique with other victims, including Amanda and 2 elderly community members whose estates she had seized through similar guardianship scams. Dr. Mitchell's complete cooperation provided access to Eleanor's entire network of corrupt professionals. He had maintained detailed records of all patients referred by Eleanor, documenting the pattern of predetermined diagnoses and fraudulent psychiatric evaluations spanning over a decade. The evidence revealed a sophisticated medical fraud operation that had been used to facilitate numerous financial crimes and asset seizures. More importantly, Dr. Mitchell had secretly recorded his recent conversations with Dr. Chin about my case. The recordings captured Dr. Chin acknowledging her role in feeding information to Eleanor's legal team and discussing strategies for undermining my credibility through manipulated psychological assessments. Her casual discussion of professional ethics violations provided ironclad evidence of conspiracy and fraud. The new evidence allowed Detective Rodriguez to reopen the investigation with federal support. The medical fraud angle brought FBI involvement as the crimes crossed state lines and involved federal healthcare programs. Eleanor's Medicaid and insurance fraud, documented through Dr. Mitchell's records, added federal charges that carried significant prison sentences and asset forfeiture penalties. Amanda emerged as our most powerful ally once the federal investigation provided protection from Eleanor's legal retaliation. FBI agents interviewed Amanda extensively, and her testimony revealed the full scope of Eleanor's criminal enterprise across multiple states and decades. Amanda's documentation, combined with federal investigative resources, painted a picture of organized criminal activity that exceeded even our worst suspicions. The federal investigation uncovered Eleanor's connection to a broader network of financial predators targeting vulnerable families throughout the southeastern United States. Her real estate empire was built on systematic fraud involving dozens of victims, complex money laundering schemes, and connections to other criminal organizations. The evidence suggested Eleanor was not just a sophisticated individual criminal, but part of a larger criminal enterprise. Jennifer Walsh's forensic accounting work, now supported by federal resources, revealed the true extent of Eleanor's wealth accumulation. Hidden offshore accounts, shell corporations in multiple countries, and complex investment structures had concealed millions of dollars in criminal proceeds. The financial investigation triggered international cooperation that would eventually lead to asset recovery for numerous victims. Patricia Hawthorne's political connections proved crucial when federal attention focused on local government corruption. Eleanor's influence had been purchased through systematic bribery of local officials' campaign contributions designed to ensure favorable treatment and real estate deals that enriched politicians willing to ignore her criminal activities. The political corruption angle added RICO charges that threatened Eleanor's entire criminal organization. The psychological evaluation that had been Eleanor's weapon became our greatest asset when Dr. Mitchell testified about Eleanor's attempts at medical fraud. Instead of evaluating my mental state, the proceedings focused on Eleanor's criminal manipulation of healthcare systems and professional ethics violations. The legal tables turned completely with Eleanor facing psychiatric evaluation to determine her fitness to stand trial. Dr. Chen's betrayal backfired spectacularly when federal investigators offered her cooperation agreements in exchange for testimony against Eleanor's criminal organization. Facing decades in federal prison for conspiracy fraud and racketeering charges, Dr. Chen provided detailed information about Eleanor's criminal network and methods. Her insider knowledge became crucial evidence for prosecuting the entire criminal enterprise. The evidence compilation was overwhelming and irrefutable. Bank records recorded conversations, victim testimonies, medical fraud documentation, and financial forensic analysis created an impenetrable case against Eleanor's criminal organization. Federal prosecutors described it as one of the most comprehensive financial fraud cases they had encountered, with evidence quality that virtually guaranteed successful prosecution. Marcus faced his own reckoning when federal agents arrested him during an attempted flight to a non-extradition country. His luggage contained forged documents, substantial cash amounts, and detailed instructions for accessing hidden offshore accounts. The flight attempt added federal charges and demonstrated consciousness of guilt that destroyed any remaining credibility for Eleanor's innocent family narrative. The asset seizure phase began immediately with federal agents freezing Eleanor's accounts and placing holds on all properties connected to her criminal enterprise. Our family home was returned to my name through emergency court orders, and my stolen assets were restored pending full investigation completion. The financial recovery process would take time, but the immediate restoration of my rights and property provided tangible validation of our struggle. The transformation from isolated victim to protected federal witness was profound and empowering. Federal protection ensured that Eleanor could no longer intimidate or manipulate me through legal threats or psychological warfare. The investigation's scope guaranteed that her entire criminal network would face justice, preventing future victims and providing closure for past ones. As Eleanor's carefully constructed criminal empire crumbled under federal investigation, her desperation became evident through increasingly erratic behavior and legal strategies. The woman who had seemed untouchable and omnipotent was revealed as a common criminal whose sophisticated methods could not withstand professional law enforcement scrutiny and federal prosecutorial resources. The federal trial became a media sensation that exposed the full scope of Eleanor's criminal enterprise to public scrutiny. Over 6 weeks of testimony, prosecutors presented evidence of crimes spanning 15 years and affecting over 30 victims across 7 states. The courtroom was packed daily with victims, their families, and community members seeking accountability for decades of systematic fraud and manipulation. Eleanor's defense strategy of claiming mental illness backfired completely when her own psychological evaluation revealed antisocial personality disorder and narcissistic traits consistent with predatory criminal behavior. The psychiatric testimony painted her as a calculating predator who had deliberately targeted vulnerable individuals for systematic exploitation. Her competency to stand trial was confirmed, eliminating any possibility of avoiding criminal responsibility. Marcus received a 12-year federal sentence for his role in the conspiracy, including charges of identity theft, bank fraud, and money laundering. His cooperation with prosecutors provided additional evidence against Eleanor, but could not mitigate his extensive criminal participation. The marriage that had been built on lies and theft was formally dissolved, with all jointly held assets reverting to my sole ownership as the legitimate purchaser. Dr. Chen faced professional license revocation and a 5-year federal sentence for conspiracy and healthcare fraud. Her foundation was dissolved, with remaining assets distributed to legitimate victim advocacy organizations. The betrayal that had seemed so devastating ultimately provided crucial evidence that strengthened our case and exposed additional criminal activity within Eleanor's network. Eleanor herself received a 25-year federal sentence, essentially a life sentence for a woman in her 70s. The judge specifically noted the sophisticated nature of her crimes, the extensive harm to victims, and her complete lack of remorse throughout the legal proceedings. The sentence included restitution orders totaling over $3 million and forfeiture of all assets connected to her criminal enterprise. The asset recovery process restored not only my stolen property, but provided substantial additional compensation for the years of emotional trauma and financial manipulation. Eleanor's real estate portfolio, investment accounts, and hidden assets were liquidated to compensate victims, with my case receiving priority due to the strength of evidence and extent of documented damages. Amanda received significant compensation for her previous losses and gained additional closure through Eleanor's conviction. Her children, now adults, were able to understand the true circumstances of their family's financial struggles and their mother's heroic efforts to protect them from Eleanor's manipulation. The validation of Amanda's experiences provided healing that extended beyond monetary compensation. Detective Rodriguez received commendation for her thorough investigation and commitment to justice despite departmental pressure. Her work on Eleanor's case led to task force assignment focusing on similar financial exploitation schemes targeting vulnerable families. The case became a model for investigating sophisticated fraud operations and protecting victims from retaliation. Dr. Mitchell's cooperation resulted in immunity from prosecution and became a catalyst for reforming psychiatric evaluation procedures in guardianship cases. His testimony led to new professional standards requiring multiple independent assessments and detailed documentation to prevent similar medical fraud schemes. His courage in exposing Eleanor's corruption saved countless future victims. The personal transformation from victim to survivor to advocate was profound and lasting. The experience revealed inner strength I never knew existed and demonstrated the power of truth over sophisticated manipulation. The legal victory provided not just financial justice, but psychological healing from years of gaslighting and emotional abuse. The community impact extended far beyond individual justice to systemic changes in how financial exploitation cases are investigated and prosecuted. Eleanor's case led to enhanced training for law enforcement, improved victim protection protocols, and stronger cooperation between federal and local agencies in complex fraud investigations. My nursing career flourished with renewed purpose as I became an advocate for victims of financial abuse and domestic manipulation. Speaking at conferences and training sessions allowed me to help other victims recognize warning signs and seek appropriate support. The experience transformed trauma into purpose and isolation into community connection. The chosen family that emerged from this ordeal proved more supportive and genuine than any blood relationships I had known. Detective Rodriguez became a lifelong friend and mentor. Jennifer Walsh provided ongoing financial guidance and friendship. Amanda and I developed a sister-like bond forged through shared survival and mutual support during the darkest moments. The house that had been a battlefield became a sanctuary of peace and security. Every room was reclaimed and redecorated, removing all traces of Eleanor's presence and Marcus's deception. The home became a symbol of survival and independence, a tangible reminder that truth and justice could overcome even sophisticated criminal manipulation. The final court hearing, where Eleanor's appeals were denied and her sentence became final, provided complete closure to this chapter of my life. Watching her led away in handcuffs, no longer the powerful manipulator, but simply an elderly criminal facing consequences for decades of harm, was deeply satisfying and emotionally healing. Looking back on this journey from betrayal to justice, I realize that Eleanor's greatest mistake was underestimating the power of truth and the courage of people willing to stand against injustice. Her sophisticated criminal methods could not withstand the combined force of honest people working together for accountability and protection of future victims. Have you ever experienced betrayal from someone you trusted completely, or watched karma finally catch up to someone who seemed untouchable? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. Sometimes sharing these experiences helps us all heal and recognize that we are not alone in facing difficult family dynamics and personal betrayals. If this story resonated with you or reminded you of similar situations in your own life, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more true stories about overcoming family drama and finding justice in impossible situations. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear that survival and recovery are possible, even after the most devastating betrayals. Thank you for joining me on this journey from victim to survivor to advocate. Remember that truth has power. Courage is contagious, and sometimes the most painful experiences lead to the most meaningful growth in the strongest chosen families. Until next time, trust your instincts, document everything, and never underestimate your own strength to overcome injustice and build a better future.